Hello world, welcome to the 105th climate change emergency protest here in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. I am in the woods of the Gettysburg battlefield, and it is about 42 degrees right now. It is December 11th, and this is the 105th broadcast. Next week will be December 18th, and that'll be the 106th broadcast. Presently, the CO2 level is 414 parts per million. And the significance of that is that humans have only existed in a non-changing environment from 200 parts per million to 280 parts per million. So we're at 414 parts per million. Not a good situation. If you factored in methane, the equivalency is somewhere around 600 to 700 parts per million. So we want to get it back down to 200 to 280 parts per million to have a safe environment and non-changing Earth environment, but it doesn't look like we're going to get there. This forest here, and my broadcast is deliberately from this area where I continue to run here. For 40 plus years I've been running here. Started off with one of my teacher friends, Ralph, who has since passed away 2 years ago, who became like a big brother to me, and he was my running mentor. But yeah, I've been running in this forest for 40 plus years, and been running since I was 13, so in reality I've been running 47 years. It's coming up. I started running in this area when I was 18 years old. Before that, I always ran on the roads, and now my wife and I, Tanya, run on the horse trails. So it's a beautiful environment. However, as you can see behind me here, the forest is now dying. It is not a good situation. The oak trees are dying due to oak beetles. Trees are falling. You got drought, severe drought in the area. We've had weather changes due to climate change. Periods of inundation of rain for months on end. It seems like just big sloppy mess. And then we'll go into a summer drought that'll last 3-4 months. Insects here, or the oak borer beetle, are destroying the oak trees. You have the ash beetle destroying the ash trees, and whoever knows what else, but everything is dying. I mean, all the trees are beginning to lean in various directions, and as you can tell from this forest, it's a second growth forest for the most part. It's not a totally mature forest, but it was well on the way to becoming that. But now it's going to fade away before it's too long, and eventually it'll be just an open field. And it's very sad. It's sad to watch an old friend die, and this is a 40-year-old friend plus years, and it's similar to all else failing. Drought causes stress on the environments. The fires that we see in California and in Colorado on the west coast of the United States have not occurred here yet in the Appalachian area, but eventually it will, and it's only a matter of time till we go into severe drought, and then we get massive forest fires, and then the press will wake up, because in the United States, for the most part, the press is based in New York and New York area, New York City, and they don't cover other events. They'll cover it, but they don't really focus on it. I mean, the California fires have not stopped, and they continue on, and you don't hear about it. All you hear about is coronavirus, Donald Trump, and whatever stupid story they have, like Taylor Swift or something or other. So it's not a good situation that the press does not cover it. They're not doing their job, and our government's not doing the job to help the citizens of the United States concerning coronavirus. And we have up to 30 to 40 million people. This is for you people outside the United States. 30 to 40 million people are about to be evicted out of their houses due to not being able to pay their rent or their mortgage. And the moratorium ends on December 31st unless Congress steps in. So that's 30 to 40 million people. Almost 12% of the United States will be out on the streets homeless. So it's not a good situation there. Our government is not there for us, and our government is not clear-headed, and they're not forward-thinking. They're stuck in little political games, and the population does not even realize it, and they let them get away with it, and they don't stand up to the politicians and tell them to get it together. But here we are. And climate change is one of those examples, and as far as the media also not covering the issue. As I said, the fires have not happened yet, but what's happening in this forest is similar to the glaciers fading away and dying, because once they start going, it's hard to get them back. The conditions are not right for forest growth right now here, and as are the conditions not right for glacier growth. And once this ball starts rolling down the hill, it's hard to get it back, and it's hard to stop the brakes on a train that's going full speed. So you're going to end up with an open plain here, as I said. Fires will clear the area even more so because it creates more drought once you get an open area, and even more fires will occur here. and the town of Gettysburg will eventually be in jeopardy, and the people don't even know it. What they need in this battlefield, as I've shown over the last two previous broadcasts, is that they need a massive tree planting campaign, and which would be a jewel as far as the national park goes, and showing a forward-thinking attitude as far as climate change and where we need to head as a society. But no, they have to have their open fields so that they can show what happened during the battle. Well, that's what your imagination and your thought process is for. You know, all you need is pictures and a plaque and a tower that shows kind of the layout of what the area was like. But they're not going to do it, and they're going to let everything fade away, and we're all going to be in jeopardy due to our policies in this federal government. And what's happening is that our governmental policies are also affecting everything around the world. So just like the forest, this little forest here will affect the climate around here, which will affect a larger area, because then the fields that have farm, agriculture on it won't be able to grow because it'll get extremely hot. It'll go an extra couple degrees up without a forest to cool things down. So our little forest here will affect the fields, which will affect a large area of Pennsylvania, which will affect the whole system. You know, it's a butterfly effect. So it's the same with everything else. Everything's interrelated, and unless we have strength in numbers, such as massive forest planting around the whole country and around the world, we're in big trouble. You cannot technology your way out of this situation, because what's required with renewable energy is also fossil fuels to create that situation, such as wind turbines. You know, it requires an extreme amount of fossil fuels to make and metal out of the ground. And to make solar panels, it's the same thing. I'm not saying don't do it, but an easy answer for some of the situation is to plant massive amounts of forest. It's not hard to do. It's a no-brainer, and people need to rethink things. You need to dig up your lawns and stop mowing and plant trees and plant plants, things that don't require a lot of maintenance, that actually return carbon to the soil and pull carbon out of the air. And now what will happen here is that once this forest goes, it becomes a carbon emitter. As the trees die, they emit carbon and methane back into the atmosphere. Instead of saving the environment, they become a detriment to the environment and to habitat for humans. Also, you end up with a forest dying. You end up with runoff into the streams. The water's not held back because there are no longer trees and roots to retain the water. Nutrients stop in the creeks as well, because right now on the forest floor, as you can tell, we have a lot of leaf litter. Leaf litter provides microbes and bugs and all sorts of fungi and different things, and mushrooms and whatnot, and so that things can continue to grow and thrive and replenish the soil. But once you lose the forest, you start losing that, and the fires will clean it off, and the streams will be in jeopardy then. And therefore the oceans will also be in trouble, because they no longer get the nutrients from the forest that's around here. So this forest will affect all the other things around it. You know, once you lose one thing, you start losing other things, and it's like an avalanche. It just goes and goes and goes and keeps getting bigger and bigger. So it will affect the crops nearby. Also, the drying out causes the potential for deluges. You get any type of rain. A 2-inch rain, which would normally be absorbed into the forest floor, will now become a torrent of rain into the creeks and affect towns nearby. And if you get a 10-inch rain, that could be devastating for a nearby town. So everything's interrelated. The glaciers, the Arctic is related to everything. That, if anything happens to the Arctic, and it goes as it is going around the Russian seas right now, which have massive amounts of permafrost and methane in the soil and in the ocean bed, everything affects everything else, and it becomes more of a greenhouse gas. So instead of being a carbon sink, it becomes a carbon emitter. With the effect of the oceans warming up, it slows down the AMOC, which is Atlantic Mid-Diurnal Overturning Circulation, and also affects the Gulf Stream. So you get a buildup of heat in certain areas, and then you get a cold in the other areas. Things get out of control. The center of the cold for once you lose the Arctic will become over Greenland. So it changes the jet stream totally, if there's any jet stream left. Like, this is December. I should be freezing right now. I shouldn't be in, a shirt and just standing out here listening to birds. I should be cold. I should have a parka on at this point. So once you lose the habitat, you start having mass migrations. You have food insecurity, such as if you lose the agriculture, you have food insecurity issues. You have bigger hurricanes. With a warming ocean, you have giant, instead of being a Category 3 hurricane, it ends up being a Category 4 or 5 hurricane. You'll get coastal flooding. With the heating, you get thermal expansion as well as more deluges of rain. And It'll happen in the streams as well, as I said. You end up with water shortages. Continents, they talk about a 1.5 degree, trying to hold everything under 1.5 degrees or 2 degrees Celsius, which is devastating. We won't survive a 2 degrees rise in temperature. But what happens is inside the continents, in internal areas of the United States and Russia and places like that, it actually heats up much more than that. Instead of being a 2 degree increase, it'll be a 4 degree increase. Well, that affects the crops. Crops become less viable and are more susceptible to drought, and the situation does not agree with growing crops. They need a certain amount of water, a certain amount of sunshine, and a certain amount of dryness to them. So everything is a big problem. Everything affects everything else. So once you have the water shortages, you end up with wars. With the mass migrations, you have countries putting up border walls, and you'll have countries attacking other countries for water that you can use. Instead of being oil the big issue, eventually water will become the big issue. And then you end up with more mass migrations due to a war situation destroying the environment where people live. You end up with government collapse, which eventually causes social collapse. As in our government right now in the United States, they're not responding properly to coronavirus. People are out of money. People don't have food. In Texas, for example, you have 4 miles long of cars waiting to get food. This is the United States that's happening. Our government has not given us any money other than $1,200 stimulus, one time only, to get by. And other countries in Europe and Western countries provide up to 70 to 90% or 100% of their income that they lose by being shut down. Our country does not do that. They're not helping us, and the government is full of greed and corruption, and it's both parties involved. It's not the Democrats, it's not the Republicans, it's both of them involved. The sooner people wake up, the sooner things can get done. But right now, everyone's drinking the Kool-Aid and believing that, their party's on their side. In reality, they're not. So you end up with government collapse, social unrest, and then you end up with chaos. And with that goes with death by the billions. Food insecurity will lead to death by the billions. Water and habitat loss will lead to death by the billions. It's a whole collapse situation going to happen. The risk of inaction is severe, and the risk at non-directed panic. We need to have a panic situation where we actually direct our thought process towards fixing this situation. And I don't know if we can fix it. This is an extreme dire situation that's going on right now. In 2 years, I guarantee you, we're going to have an environmental collapse, and we're going to start seeing it even more so around the world. Last year, Australia, last winter, our winter, their summer, had I think it was 500 million animals were burned to death. It is a horrible situation, and yet their country continues with coal extraction and no change in policy. What point do people understand, or when countries understand, such as our West Coast, experiencing these massive wildfires, and our government's not doing anything about it? Trump's answer is to sweep the forest floor. Well, that's stupidly insane, and I like to drop some of these politicians off and watch them try to clean up the forest floor. So by 2026, give or take a couple years, we're going to start seeing severe situations that'll indicate which level of extinction we're going to go to, and what the base level is. The things we're seeing now that are happening are only going to exacerbate. They're going to get worse, and it's not going to get better until there's policies to change things and actually drop a CO2 level in the atmosphere. And that's not going to happen because everyone believes in technology, or they'll wait for Superman to come by and do it. Wait for that one person. And yeah, maybe one person can change everything, but right now we need the whole population involved. And this is right-wingers, left-wingers, and everyone, because everyone's going to die equally. They think they can run away and hide in New Zealand or whatever, but eventually it's going to come and get them. You can't run away from it. So I don't know if we can fix it. This is a situation where people are not prone to act. In my neighborhood, it's mowing grass all the time. That's an example of not getting it. Whether the message gets through eventually, I doubt it. Americans and Westerners in general are very prone to stay with what they have, and they like their comforts. So we don't have a world approach, and we need people that actually see things from a world point of view, not just a local point of view, or I want mine and no one else can have it. So next week's talk will be December 18th. That'll be talk number 106. I invite everyone to look down my webpage here, Jim McHenry and Tanya Qualley. Also, check out Environmental Coffee House. Also, Roger Hallam and Paul Beckwith, really good college professors. as well as Peter Wadhams, Peter Carter, and Kevin Anderson. So I'll catch you next week. Try to do something to change your world and try to get involved, you know, protest, talk on Facebook, get a chatter going with your family or whatever. Or if you don't know what's truly happening, I suggest you start studying up on it. And a good start is to go right down this webpage that I'm on right now. All right, see you later. Bye.